Rep Radio, an Emory production. Since 2009, our goal has been simple. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Our podcast breaks the fourth wall to give you an inside look at the plays and the players. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Today on the podcast, TS Hawkins returns to Rep Radio with director Lois Moses to talk about #Sweet Reality, a piece taking part in the Bridge PHL Theatre Festival. We talk about Say Her Name, Black Lives Matter, and the fragility of masculinity. Here is my interview with T.S. Hawkins and Lois Moses. Welcome to Rep Radio. I am your host, Darnell Radford, and today I am in a green room that is, Rep Radio's Studio C. And if you've been following along, you probably know where we are. And I'm here to talk about Bridge PHL Theatre Festival. If you listen to the other podcast, the Broad Street Review podcast, you may have heard another conversation about Bridge PHL Theatre Festival. But this one will specifically talk about one of the pieces being offered in the festival this year. So, if you are a longtime listener of Rep Radio, you may be familiar with T.S. Hawkins, who is the creator of this piece. I'm also here with Lois Moses, who is the director of this piece called Sweet Reality, #Sweet Reality.
Yes.
And so I touched base with TS in a theater lobby, as I always do, and they mentioned this festival, and I said, I know about this festival. I've been aware of this festival, but I haven't had the opportunity to come over and have a more in-depth conversation. So I reached out, and we had one conversation, so you can go to Broad Street Review podcast to listen to that one. But in this moment, in this space, we're going to talk about Sweet Reality.
Yay!
So TS and Lois, welcome to Rep Radio. Welcome back to Rep Radio.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here first time.
Cherry popped.
So, tell me how you first heard about Bridge PHL, the theater festival, and when you got involved.
I got involved with the Bridge 4 years ago. By accident, they had an actor drop out of a show, and somebody told Gabrielle, well, call TS. And I was like, okay, because it was random. I really hadn't had that many interactions with Gabrielle before. And it was like, we just need someone to do this role from Danny. I'm forgetting the title of the piece, but it was a really good piece of work. And I had 3 days to learn the lines, find a costume, and get on stage. And I did.
This is what all my training was for.
This is all my training was for. All the student loans are for.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, I got to have a much more deep conversation with Gabrielle. And Gabrielle was like, oh, are you a writer? Do you do X? I was like, of course. I'm international, darling.
Renowned.
Of course. And so for the second annual festival, I was brought on as one of the writers, which was really cool.
Great.
Yeah.
I love the idea of this festival, that it is just pretty much a given that if you are a person of color, that you are sort of definitely welcome to be a part of this, because its mission, as it states, that's its mission. So definitely great to see something that's like all those barriers you think are in the way, at least as far as this festival is concerned, are not. So all you have to do is create and present. And here we are.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So based on your experience, why should someone who's listening consider participating in Bridge PHL?
It's important, especially for writers of color, primarily writers of color that also identify as queer, to have an avenue to get their work heard. This is sometimes the first time someone has ever had the opportunity to see work on its feet, and it gives you, by accident, firsthand knowledge on how to produce your own work, do your own casting, find your own budget. Is it low budget, no budget? And just to see the world that you've written in script come alive for an audience and get real natural feedback.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
I remember saying early on, if I had the venue, I'd be unstoppable.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the hardest part. It's like, how much? For, okay.
It's access. Yeah,
This is
access
like
is important.
a dream of how many tickets you plan to sell when you secure a venue, and you're just like, let's hope this works.
All you need is venue and access, and
Yeah.
for folks not to be gatekeepers of those things.
Yeah. So this, so submissions are received for this this year's festival in like March or April, and you start thinking about what becomes Sweet Reality. So tell us about it.
So Sweet Reality didn't exist just for this festival. Sweet Reality has had a journey all its own. It debuted in 2017 at Plays and Players under the direction of Khalif Troy, who's also directing another piece in the Bridge Festival as well. And then from there, it moved on to Chicago. It debuted in Chicago earlier this year, and so it's coming back to Philly. So it existed before the festival.
Great. And what was the inspiration for Sweet Reality?
Sandra Bland. Literally just Sandra Bland. I was speaking with Lois about it even before like it was like a full piece. Before it was just like sections of random thought. Sandra Bland really struck a chord for me.
Yeah.
A woman knowing her worth in this world was struck down because of the fragility of whiteness.
Yeah, and I just got finished reading Talking to Strangers, the Malcolm Gladwell book, which he uses the entire book to talk about the whole story of Sandra Bland. And it is terrible the way it lays out that way, because you know, you may have heard the audio, may know the story, but the way it plays out, and he brings in all of these other examples to show you how Talking to Strangers creates these perceptions that are just ridiculous and unfounded, and by the end of it, you're just like, ugh, I don't even know why I bother.
Right.
You're just like, let me just go find some black people to hug right now because I need that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so piece was already on its legs.
It was already on its legs.
But so when you thought to present it here in the festival, are you working with people that had been a part of it before, or is this a new
This is a
collective of
new
people?
group of creatives that I'm working with. I had the luxury of working with Lois Moses again for the second time this year. Third time. Wait.
Yes,
third. Wait.
New York.
New York. Oh, right.
Okay.
Right. So all of this was happening. Oh my God. 2019 has been nuts. Lois and I did Cartons of Ultrasounds. Another one of my pieces had a limited off-Broadway run earlier this year, while Sweet Reality was debuting in Chicago. So my brain was a little like, whoa. Lois and I were in residency together at 1812 Productions.
Okay.
Working on a piece that I had crafted in 2015 called They'll Neglect to Tell You, about the gentrification of Philadelphia. And then we're doing this piece.
She roped me into this.
So Lois is directing this piece. We also have Maria Gianna Beltre. I've worked with her before on The Secret Life of Wonder, a prologue in G. She's playing Woman 3. Katrina Hall's first time we're working with her. She's playing Woman 1. Betsy, Woman 2. Sorry. Betsy Vivar is playing Woman 1. First time we're ever working with her. And Cynda Purnell is playing Freedom, but I worked with Cynda before in another one of my pieces titled Again. So it's like old, new, like connections with people.
So I'm always interested when characters have no names.
Yes.
So tell me about that. Why no names?
Because that's how the world sees us. And it's very indicative to this piece when you're always reading the headline, something new that breaks from the headline, Black woman. And sometimes we'll say Black man, even knowing full well that that person is trans, right? We don't have names. We're just image markers so that someone can click on an article, and then by the end of the article, you figure out what our name is. But you never know our names. We're just some other random Black face in the crowd that happened to be #able. Is that a word? Is that a word? #able. So that's
Hashtagable.
#able.
Okay, it's a word now.
It also works. #able.
Able.
Right.
Yeah. So that was censors this work.
Yeah, it's crazy because now we're tripping all over ourselves about diversity and inclusion.
I don't think we are as people
not
of
us.
color. I think
The
white
community,
people are.
community, yeah. The collective.
You're being diplomatic.
Yes,
That's what you have
yes.
to do. Yes, great.
The
I don't have to.
But we're at least claiming that we had this great interest in diversity and difference and uniqueness, and but at the same time we're still trying to put everyone in a box.
But that's a recycled story. My husband is an organizational psychologist. And specifically works around diversity. So this is a recycled conversation, and particularly in my being a lawyer, looking at affirmative action and so on. So this is just a new way. And at one point they called it colorblind casting, and then it was racial so it's just a new way to package something that really hasn't been addressed to the sense that there has been any kind of substantive shift or change.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, institutional settings are still catering to the audiences that they're comfortable with, which is usually audiences that look like them. Even though, we've had a phenomenal year with all the, between Jim of the Ocean and the August Wilson play and Color Purple.
Otherwise known as the embarrassing suite of people of color and
because
Barrymore Awards.
Well,
During
because
Black
we
History
made a lot of money and a lot of interest, Drew, although, we'll see what that translates into, and I don't think that it translates and Eva, I forgot, and Cash Corin's piece.
Yeah.
But what it translates into, because in some ways, oftentimes, those institutions feel like they feel really good about themselves for having done all that work and giving. And then they go back to, okay, we're tired. We've got to go back to what we know. And, so but that's all I was saying, that recycled. I mean, when I think about the fact that I have an MFA from UCLA from the 80s, and we were doing the same thing. Actually, I was at Pitt in the early 80s, and we were championing the idea of, African American inclusion, or at least self-definition in terms of work. And then at UCLA, the same thing in the later 80s. And now I see the young people doing it. So at each point, we have always had to create our own venues for our voice and also for our artistic expression. I went to UCLA, there was not one, in 3 years in the MFA program, there was not one main stage show that had a Black woman character, and I was actually asked to understudy for a gentleman who had gotten a pilot, and the role was a 90-year-old ex-enslaved person, male, sitting on the porch smoking a cigar. I was like, well, that would be a transformative role, but I have to do a little better than that. So, but that's it. That's mine.
Yeah. So, say her name.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when this, was sort of the reminder that finally started trending or went viral?
Right.
What were your thoughts about say her name?
At the same time, I was thinking it was both important and sad. We already had the mainstream hashtag, which was Black Lives Matter. But within Black Lives Matter, Black women and Black trans women were immediately erased. The focus was solely on the Black male voice being diminished. And not saying that that's not important.
Yeah.
That is important. But men already have a leg up they're attached to a privilege that if you are black and woman and queer and black and woman and trans, you don't have access to that privilege. So even a hashtag that was like supposed to unify us all still managed to find a way to erase us.
Yeah.
So say her name is strictly important because it focuses on the black woman body.
Yeah. We should also add give her credit.
Right.
Because
Right.
There's a lot of
Give her credit.
there's a lot of
Respect black women.
appropriating. There's a lot of appropriating that came from black women that oh, I don't know where Yaz came from.
Yes,
you know,
you
all
do.
this-
Yes, you do.
Fears, all these, just everything that's like, you're gonna pretend that this wasn't over here this whole
Right.
time.
Right.
They're like, oh, some really flashy, pale-skinned person just allows it to trend.
You're like, yeah, it's
and
queen. I'm like, you
now
don't
we're going to
know.
take it.
Right.
Just make it our own.
This is why I tell a lot of white queer men, no, you do not have a strong black woman inside of you. Stop.
Yes.
Like, you don't. Stop.
I don't even know where the confidence for that came from.
But it became a thing, and I was like, y'all need to cease that immediately. Like, my
Yeah.
queer brothers and sisters, stop. Like, you do
Yes.
not have, if you are a white, cis male, you do not have a strong black woman inside you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You do not.
But is that how they've been defined as minorities? Because of the strong black woman? I mean, because, technically there is seen as sort of a classification as minorities now. And
Yes, and.
right, yes, and dot, dot,
We're
dot.
not here to talk about the men.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yes, and. Like,
Yeah, I always thought that was funny because it's like, I'm sorry. So what are you trying to say? That
Right.
the history of your family means that you were at some point brought up by a black woman?
I mean, don't.
Because it
The
gets
hell?
deep then and
That-
say, how far
Absolutely.
back are we talking?
about?
Because
Absolutely.
you white.
Like, don't get it twisted. Black women have been nurturing white bodies
Yes.
for centuries.
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they live inside you when you continually to oppress them, even in your casual jocular speak.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between the values, because that's what, the Help kind of showed. You're bright, you're beautiful, you're so, but the
Right.
whole idea is that was really teaching values. And my question is, did they stick? But, but that's, what I'm saying, but that's just like you said, that
Only
does
when
not
it's
mean that
convenient.
you,
When it's
right,
convenient.
exactly.
You remember it.
But exactly. and
Yeah,
that's-
I was thinking about a couple of television shows where, like, an assistant, somebody comes in and applies to be an assistant, and it's a no nonsense black woman, and let me come in here and right this white ship,
Yeah.
get everybody up and
Suits had-
running.
there was
Yes,
a show,
Suits.
Yeah, the sister, and
And
she's
I-
bad.
Yeah, because
But
the
it's-
whole time I was just like, yes, because I knew her from so many other roles. I'm
Yeah.
skipping on her name right now. I feel really
Yeah, but
bad. I'm
she's
gonna have to
very
find
good.
it, put a
She's-
quote. But yeah, she would just walk in and no nonsense, figure out how we're gonna fix this. She's like, by the way, I'm not a lawyer, but let me tell these lawyers how to lawyer.
Let me tell you, right, these children how to,
Yes.
right, absolutely.
Like, I don't need a degree to get you together.
Yes, exactly. It's like I got it all taken care of.
Yep.
Yeah. So take us into the rehearsal room.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine that even though this piece was already established, that there were conversations throughout. So
Yeah.
talk about what a rehearsal process was like for this.
So I was part of the beginning, but I purposely stepped out because I wanted to make sure that the relationship between the other creatives and the directors was
Yes.
clear. And I haven't been back until the end
Right.
in producer mode. So I stepped in first as playwright to have them. I'm here. Please ask me whatever questions you need to ask me that you're not getting from the text. Then I removed myself and I came back in later as producer to clean some stuff up.
Okay.
But the process is more of a
And that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's the lowest question because you've been in the room.
But and what's interesting, because I found myself last night, because we're talking about sisters and black women having, they talk about our multiplicity, and that's all great and well until you have to do 8 jobs at one time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sitting here, and TS is taking care of all of the production stuff, and she's got 100 different things, making sure people are taken care of as well as fed and so on. And I'm in the room working on the video, and I'm running that as well as watching and trying to direct. And you realize that at a certain point, it's all good and wonderful to have all of those gifts and talent, but at the same time, there is something to be said for being put in a position where you have help.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you have access to resources so that you don't have to do all of that, and that you can, have because we make magic out of nothing. And at the same time, and why should we always have to do that? Because what it cost us in some ways. So in the process, so that's just sort of on the side, because I want you all to give TS money. So
make all checks to
TS Hawkins. Exactly.
That's
so that's number
T,
one.
capital
I feel
S.
like now I need a cash app. Like, I don't
So, but what
I'll
was
find it.
profound for me working, because I'm working with a whole bunch of millennials, and one a woman's
One
close
boomer.
to my age, one boomer, and or Joneses. Actually, we're Joneses. We're not boomers, but that's just my whole thing. I'm an academic as well. But the bottom line, what I got out of this, particularly in listening to TS, because I come from an old school acting where you're always dispensable, and the fact is you need to get up in there, learn your lines, and be prepared and do the work and have the reservoir in terms of being able. As I'm directing you, what I expect from you is a reservoir in terms of you trying things, and then I can play with it around. So, but there's a different kind of teaching that has gone on later. But I also think it's part of being in millennials. They have a different distraction and noise, and I always have the George Carlin thing where he says that this is a generation where everybody gets a winning. You all winners, and said no, you're not all winners. One of you is a winner, the rest of you losers. So you need to go back and work a little bit more. So, and she hit me to the fact that there is a sort of a sensitivity of a different kind of expression with this generation. And then I realized the epiphany for me was I became a teacher, not just because I don't like working with actors, and I'm an actor. I really, but it's true because it's a deep. You know what I'm saying? You're digging into places that, and if people aren't prepared or trained, you're digging into places that are. I'm a therapist. I'm not trying to ignite. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's some real stuff that people are carrying in the world we live in. So it's not that I don't like it. It's that I know what it takes, and I know that I transfer energy to.
Yeah.
So I carry the energy as well. So that's, so it means I have to go on a journey.
Yeah.
And so in this, I went on this journey of this awakening, not only for myself, but that's all I write about, is really the visibility and divinity of sisters. But to stand in her peace and to work to help to awaken these young women into not only their worth, because the piece became a teaching for them to ignite the understanding of themselves through the words that they were saying. And it was profound, and to watch them, to watch them ignite and to dig and so on has been, for me, much more important even than the directing, which is really interesting to me because I didn't come in looking for that.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving with this profound experience of seeing these young women expand and, expand and to see themselves bigger, or at least an open door for something more. And really more than anything is how urgent this is. Because that's what it is. We don't have the luxury. And somehow we've been duped into and anesthetized or lulled into this point where we think that it's, sort of out there, or, it's, he's that guy is, he's yuck. But, and I don't say names anymore.
Yeah.
But it's urgent, and their life depends on it.
Yeah.
Really, their life depends on it. So that's, for me, the directing has been a sort of a hodgepodge of creating this tableau, as well as awakening sleeping giants and souls.
Yeah.
So it's been a privilege.
It is amazing that as a director, your job is essentially to dig and bring the reality to the surface. So you learn along with them all the time, no matter how much your experience is, you're getting something out of this as well. You know, you're just, and you're
circular.
right about being a teacher and sort of a therapist, helping them get to these emotions and now bring it through woman number one.
Yes.
Bring it through woman number two.
Essentially, yes.
And the writer, and I have to say that the first thing I told them was get your dictionaries out. When you listen to TS's and you read TS's work, the first thing you have to do is go to language, because you have to understand that there is nothing, there's not a word in her material, in her plays, that is not there purposefully, which is horrendous in some ways, because it means you have to, every single word, and I tried to explain to them, not only that, but you also have to look at the multiple, particularly if you don't understand the word, you need to look at the multiple definitions and the multiple layers that she's leaving. And because once you unearth it, it's like a smack in the face.
Yeah. Especially the writer is a poet.
So that's just worse.
Every single word means something.
Right. It's
Way
it's
more
intentional.
impactful. Yes.
Yeah.
So, I guess in general, I wanted to ask you, and I may have asked you this before, but it's been so long, so we can come back.
I know.
What are you trying to say with your work? Is there a through line through all of your work, or does every collection, sort of focus on a particular conversation that you want to be a part of, or what is the thought process behind the work you create as an artist?
Yeah. As a queer human of color, there's always a conversation that I'm a part of, but I don't have the privilege to be at the table to have those conversations. What someone always said, like, it's like I'm on the menu, but I'm never at the table. So the purpose of this work is making sure that the voices of the people that are in my circle are at the table and have control over what's at the menu and who else they invite to the table, and bringing up extra seats if necessary. And then the other part is always screaming into the abyss. Like, majority
crazy bills.
You're right. Because sometimes you do need to do that. Sometimes it just needs to be this big, guttural, Michael Jackson riot yell into this vapid space, and hopefully it lands on someone.
I went right to scream when you said that.
That's what it is. Because
know what I'm
sometimes
talking
in life,
about.
that's all you have control over. It's just like that one moment where you just get to and that's it. But the plays that I write are always based on something that's topical, in the moment, that still hasn't changed. It's historical as much as it is present day. America breeds on capitalism and racism, homophobia, xenophobia, and transphobia. So that's what a lot of my pieces circle around.
Yeah. So you touched on some of it, not being at the table. What do you think we need? How do we fix that?
Do you want a Democratic answer, or do you want a TS answer?
I want a TS answer.
TS answer. White people must go. Like that's a TS answer, but that's not really a functional.
I will sometimes say, have a seat.
I mean, but they've had the seats. They've had the seats. They've had the space. They've had the access. They continue to gatekeep access. We're watching it now with Cheeto in Chief. Like these are things we already know, right? And we can sit here and we can say, oh my God, if everyone would just come together in humanity, kumbaya, blah, 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 blah. That's not really functional either. White people, whiteness needs to step away. So that other folks who have been pushed to the fringes just have one moment in the sun to really honor and acknowledge their worth in the space. Know that they don't exist just to piss white people off. Like, they exist because they exist. They built this country. The indigenous, this is their land. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, the TS answer is this: white people need to go away. The functional answer is, if we're going to sit here and play kumbaya and gather everyone together from every hue and every walk of life, then we really take the time to sit down and listen to each other, have those conversations that we claim we want to have, not get in our feelings, state facts and observational truths on why this existence is the way it is.
Yeah, and try to understand why the passion that comes through these conversations comes through the way it does. Because I think there are a lot of people of color listening that can relate to being misunderstood, or being told that they're difficult, or
Yes.
being too much, or being asked to kind of calm down. And that's the one thing. So I hear the criticisms of millennials, but at the same time, millennials have this sense of urgency that says, we don't have time to just sit here and wait. The reason we're so anxious, no, we can't leave this room until we find a way forward, because you've been kicking this can down the road for so long, and we can't walk out of here and let you continue to kick the can down the road.
Right.
Can I just ask you, can you say a little bit more about what you mean when you say seat at the table?
Yeah.
Seat at the table? It's hard to understand the cultural differences and understandings if you don't have representation. You know, so if you're sitting in a room, if you're a part of an organization that's being led by people of the same hue, they do not understand that. So let's take a nonprofit, for example. Nonprofits always put their people of color out front.
To give the illusion of diversity and inclusion.
To say that they're doing everything, but then you look at their administrative list
their board.
and their boards, and it's all still the same hue. It's still white people. So,
but they're diverse because there's a few women on board.
Yeah, and that we've selected a few. We have some programming that is speaking to underserved population, but what you don't really realize is that a lot of that is because the funding that you get requires it. So are you really doing it because you want to, or are you doing it because you're trying to check these boxes to get that check? Or as like Jaylene said, get those coins in your purse.
Right. Like affirmative action wasn't for people of color. Affirmative action was to remind white people that they can't continue to hire people that look like them, especially if the people who look like them are unqualified for the job that they are being hired for.
Yes.
You can't keep hiring your brother. You can't keep hiring your next door neighbor. There's other people in the world that have time and talents for your organization.
Yes.
That's what affirmative action was. Black folks knew. We had value. The law was to remind white folks the same thing.
Yeah.
And then white women got in line first.
All right.
And there are a lot of jobs out there where they already have the person in mind. They're just required to put a job posting out.
Of course, yeah.
It's like, oh, we'll entertain it, and we're definitely calling you in. Just to say that we called you in.
Yeah.
And because one of the things when you say sit at the table, because I've been thinking about this a lot, and one of the things is seat at the table, because sitting at the table doesn't imply power.
No.
It just implies access. And maybe not that in the end, depending on what it costs you or what you're required to do. So really thinking about what is it going to take to make a change, and just, recognizing that if we don't have our own economic sources and our own distribution and our own ability to make decisions around what projects and so on we do as artists, there is no, no matter, you know what I'm saying, how much, there is no seat at the table. And quite frankly, my thing is, do we really want to sit at the table, or do we want to create our own, you know what I'm saying? Do we want to, I always say, do we want to go in the big house, or should we just create our own house? And so I'm at the point, well, yeah, but at the same time, what I'm saying is that there's a difference between a seat at a table and having power. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. And so, and power is the thing that will give us an ability to ultimately determine our own fate. Because remember, power by Amos Wilson's definition is power is the ability to define reality and have other people accept it as their own. And so that's why, in terms of racism has been a way in which Europeans have been, or whites, whatever you want to call them, have been able to control the movement and the opportunities and the access of people of color. And so the whole idea is that in order for us to have power, we have to have our fate and to determine our own fate, and economics, which is really sort of the last quadrant, because economics will hamper or at least negotiate around the law, and because you can negotiate the law if you have economics.
Yeah.
You can if you don't.
And there's you know, and if you are sort of looking at the past, then there's justifiable apprehension, because if you think back to Reconstruction, where it's like we're over here thriving. You know? And before that, thriving on everything you thought was trash. Find these scraps and making a meal out of it. That smells good over there.
That's right.
What are y'all making? Yeah, chitlins are fried over here.
For example, my great-grandfather, who was born in 1867, had a master's degree from Clark University, met my great-grandma in 1883, had a cotton mill company between him and four brothers down south in 1892. I have the paperwork. Had a homestead and also had a realty company, had a newspaper, ran a school, and had a patent for a hair care company. Yeah. And mind you, I should be legacy wealth.
Yeah.
But due to Reconstruction and the Wall Street, I mean, you know, the crash of 1929 in terms of it not only the terrorism from the South in terms of the stealing of property and Jim Crow, the Axis, place for Ferguson, of blocking African Americans out, like you said, because in 8 years we transformed the first people out of enslavement. I think it just, well, Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about it. 8 years in power. Continuous cycle. So, you know, I mean, you said it. Thank you for saying Reconstruction. We need to teach our children a little bit more about that.
I need to try to get an interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yes.
I just started reading The Water Dancer now.
You're a great interviewer. If I have any connection, I'll
Just
send
for
them
you.
your way.
Hopefully he's listening.
Yes.
But yeah, and there's just this fear of like, and why do we have to wear so many hats? We can't just find one thing that we do really well. We got to wear a bunch of hats just to be, and we're doing all of this.
Quintessential hat wearer, you know.
Yeah. We're doing all of this, like showing I'm not just capable of this one thing. I'm capable of these 4 other things. So if you even pulled me in for this one thing, you'll see that I am valuable in so many different ways. And you're like, yeah, but you got a little bit of a tude. Or,
It's like, I didn't want to be a...
hairs and cornrows,
right.
you know, or like, you know, it's always something like, you know, it's crazy. It's like when they argue that they just keep moving the line. It's like, I have everything. I have the one thing you asked for and 6 other things that you didn't even ask for.
It's like I'm still not enough, but I'm still too much.
Yes.
At the same time. So it's like, oh, you have to have your bachelor's degree. Fine, dandy, got it. And I was like, oh, no. For this job, you need your doctorate. For what? For what?
Yeah.
And when Chris Rock says, remember when he says that he's a multimillionaire, big-time celebrity, and the dentist lives in the same,
Exactly.
the white dentist lives
He
in
had
the
to work
same.
so hard just to live on the
Exactly.
same block as a dentist.
That's what I'm saying. My husband and I have 8 degrees between us.
Yeah, they have too many letters.
Wow.
And you know what I'm
They have
saying?
too many letters.
And you know what I'm saying? And we live down the street from, you know, I can't even say it because then they might be listening.
No.
But I'm saying, you know, when I think about what that would translate into for a white couple, it would, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, and we're comfortable, but I just think about what that translates into and still how hard we have to work. Because, you know, we work like... I said we all Jamaicans.
That's why I
Ten
stopped watching.
I got
You got 10 team jobs. Yeah.
That's why I stopped watching
it's
International
true.
House Hunters, because it's like, I'm a blogger, I'm a stay-home mom, and we have $3 million.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
How, Sway? And so I just, I get so annoyed.
And we're looking for an island, but
Right.
not just any island. I'm like, really? Why is this even a show? Who is this for?
And it's like, and what degree do you have?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? We all go to school, got loans.
Oprah don't have an island, and Oprah got Oprah money. That's all I'm saying.
There was an episode of the animated series Family Guy where
Oh, I love Family Guy.
Lois Griffin goes. She goes out for a job after, not having a job for a long time. She's sitting in the lobby and she's nervous and she says, I just hope my resume is right. Can you take a look at it? And it just says mom.
Mom.
She's like, it doesn't sound too braggy.
I remember that episode. It was hilarious.
Is this a?
And she gets a
is
job at,
Family
like-
Guy.
It's animated.
It's
That's what I'm
series.
saying is that's not Carmichael, is it? No, that's the
No,
other one.
no,
That's
no,
Carmichael.
this
It's
is
Carmichael, I guess, right?
McFarlane.
Okay, got it. I know which one
Yeah.
you're talking about now. See, tell you I'm way out there.
It just reminded me of that because it was just like she just walks in there, and I think in that job she becomes a news reporter
reporter for Fox.
Yeah, just
Fox News.
stumbled right into
Yeah.
it. Like, okay, great.
Love that
Yeah.
good failing up.
Yeah. So this is why organizations with the mission like Bridge PHL, whose mission is to foster healing connections between our rich and diverse communities by encouraging openness and dialogue about perspectives on racial prejudice, privilege, inclusion, intersectionality, and bias are so valuable. And if you are like me, where you were aware of this, but you just kind of, I don't know. Well, I don't know what my thought was. Maybe this, just like you said about this time of year being super busy, maybe that was my mindset. But I'm aware now. So this will be
On your radar?
This will be on my radar now. So, and that's why I'm glad to be here now instead, by being aware of it. Sometimes it just takes forever to get to rep radio anyway. I don't know why, but it's like, in 7 seasons, welcome to rep radio. It's got 10 seasons, welcome to rep radio.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on in this city,
But
so
it's-
it happens.
It's because I'm a young black man wearing 5 hats.
That's-
So,
you can't do it all.
And you gotta eat.
Yeah, if I had a booker, if I had a, producer, an editor, who knows? I would have been
Because
right
we
there.
need shelter. Because we have to have shelter and we have to have food.
Yes,
so we
exactly.
gotta work. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes. So of course we could talk about what's what's wrong forever, but ultimately be a part of this conversation.
Right.
Sweet Reality is part of the Bridge PHL Theater Festival. It's in 4 blocks. Is
Yes,
that right?
it's in 4
blocks.
Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. But there's a bonus. So even if you don't have the opportunity to see Sweet Reality in the festival, the Bridge Festival, we are in another festival immediately after called Rabbit Punch, which is happening November 14th and 15th.
Okay.
And that's happening at Frankie Bradley's.
Yeah. So we'll put a link in there.
Yeah.
too, as well.
I was like, so we have 6 shows.
Okay.
And some folks in the festival have either 4 or 3.
Great. Well, TS and Lois, I want to thank you for coming in
Thank you for
and
having us.
talking to me about this piece. I'm so glad that I've gotten a little bit of a, I've gotten a helping
Yeah.
of Bridge PHL, and it's enough to just leave me hungry for more. So if you're listening to this now, you still have time to go get tickets. You can go to thebridgephl.org for tickets, and you should think about more than one because theater is more fun with a +1. So TS and Lois, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank
much
you.
for talking to us about Sweet Reality, one of 17 pieces that are being featured in the Bridge PHL Theatre Festival. It was truly a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Thank
too.
you. Rep Radio continues to be inspired by our community and listeners like you. We are proud to be an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.